This happened a few days ago, but I can't get over it, and I'm still upset about it. My brother and his wife, and mother-in-law and father-in-law, were able to travel here to spend the holidays with me and dear husband. Since they had to get a flight to be here, they spent 2 weeks on isolation in a hotel and took the test before coming to our house. When they got here, sister-in-law told me in secret that she thought she might be pregnant. So I bought her a few pregnancy tests, and turns out she's pregnant. Sister-in-law already had many chemical terminations, and she's fine with that, since she knows that she might not be able to have a baby. But although brother already knew it before marrying her, he got really excited when she got pregnant for the first time, and he took very badly when she lost it. For that reason, sister-in-law decided that she only gonna tell brother when she's more advanced in pregnancy. Sister-in-law used my bathroom to take the tests, so logically, she threw them out in my trash can. No big deal. We continued the days like nothing happened. On Christmas Eve, I noticed mother-in-law looking at me more emotional, and during dinner, she insisted on the topic, "When are you giving me grandchildren?" Dear husband and I are already used to that topic, so we just answered politely that we're not planning on having kids now, and since dear husband is preparing for another bodybuilding competition. Please, no judgments about that. He's probably sterile right now, and that normally makes mother-in-law drop the subject. But she was more insistent this year. Fast forward to the night of the 26th. Dear husband is extra caring with me and decided to bring up the baby subject before we fall asleep. A little odd, but I don't mind. We already talked about it a few times, and we already agree that this is not the time. We're both busy with our careers now, and it's just not the best time. Days keep passing by kind of normally. Mother-in-law and dear husband are paying more attention to me. But I was doing so much and also taking care of sister-in-law that I don't think much about it. December 29th. Sister-in-law told me that she was bleeding, so just to be sure, I take her to the clinic for an ultrasound, and no sign of a baby. She was really fine, but just to be sure, I take her out and we go to a Christmas market and drink some wine. December 31st. We have dinner, video call my parents to celebrate New Year's, and sister-in-law brings out some champagne bottles. Normally, I don't drink alcohol, but I decided to drink with her, and mother-in-law kept looking at my glass, constantly saying that I don't need alcohol to have fun. I thought that she was being sympathetic to dear husband, since he can't drink. But he doesn't mind me drinking sometimes, so I didn't even think much of it. When it's almost midnight, I get another bottle, fill up sister-in-law and my glasses. Mother-in-law jokingly stole my glass, but I laughed it off and took the bottle with me. We saw the fireworks. I took a sip straight from the bottle, kissed my husband, hugged everybody. It was a happy moment. And then mother-in-law decided to make a speech. She started with a normal speech, how happy she was for all of us being able to be together, healthy. And then she said to my parents that were still on a video call with us, that she had a surprise for them. She looked at me and said, "I'm sorry, OP, you probably have something planned, but I can't control myself. We're gonna be grandparents. My son's wife is pregnant." I was completely lost. I told her I wasn't. Dear husband looked at me and told me he already knew, that I didn't need to keep a secret anymore. I insisted that I wasn't pregnant, and when mother-in-law said, "I saw the pregnancy test in your trash. You are pregnant." I was in shock. When sister-in-law threw out the tests, she didn't hide it very well. But that wasn't supposed to be a big deal. Who looks for things in other people's trash bin? Sister-in-law had to say that she was the one that took the tests, but that she had lost the baby. My parents were really upset. Brother took it very badly again. Celebration mood was completely spoiled, and mother-in-law made dear husband really excited with the idea of becoming a dad. So he was waiting for me to surprise him with the news, and he was very upset too. You can't imagine how bad it got. We tried to forget it, but brother is still having a bad time. January 1st, there was nothing to do and no place to go to try to cheer him up. Dear husband is also upset. He told me it's weird, but he feels like he lost a baby too. My parents are obviously upset too. Yesterday was a little better, and today we are just trying to pretend nothing happened. Mother-in-law, father-in-law, sister-in-law, and brother will stay here for a few more days, but it's kind of weird. Everybody is acting a little weird, and I don't know what to do. It's just a crappy situation. Mother-in-law was so excited with the news. My parents and dear husband too. But there's nothing I can do to make things better now. I want to let it go, but can't forget it. Update. Just a quick one to ease your minds. Sister-in-law is fine. Even after the ultrasound, if she was hurting, I couldn't tell. She has a uterus malformation and a weakened cervix, so she knows since she was a teen that her chances of having a baby naturally are very low. She already had at least 6 early pregnancy losses, if not more. But the first time she told brother that she was pregnant, he was so excited. Looks like he thought she couldn't get pregnant. Not that would be hard to keep the baby. So when she lost the baby, she was already expecting that outcome. But he wasn't. So she decided to only tell him when she's more advanced, if and when that happens. Having a baby now is not their priority. That's why she's not doing all the treatments and not on bed rest. Brother is still not in a happy mood, but he's getting better. I don't even know what I'm going to do with dear husband and mother-in-law yet. But my mission for the next days is to cheer up brother and try to make this the best trip possible. I will come back with a better update as soon as I can. Thank you all again. Jesus, mother-in-law is a major a-hole, to the point she hyped your husband up. And he's an a-hole too. He should have mentioned finding the tests when he talked about it with you privately. That would have avoided the whole debacle. Everyone's mood was ruined because your mother-in-law and husband couldn't think straight. Not to mention, she knew you were probably planning something, yet did it anyway. Imagine for a second you were the one pregnant, then lost the baby, and that's how your parents found out. Absolutely horrible. If your husband isn't as pissed off at his mom as you are, then you have a husband problem too. My 28 female, husband, 29 male, and I have been together for 4 years. We have 1 child, 2 female, together. His ex, 29 female, has not gotten over their breakup, even though it's been 5 years. I met him around 6 months after they broke up. She went through a lot of lengths to break us up and absolutely lost it when we announced our engagement. She showed up to our wedding in a white wedding dress, and we later found out it was because my mother-in-law had invited her as her +1. I tried to ignore it to keep the peace until she tried to pour wine on my wedding dress. I lost it at that and kicked her out. We have gone low contact with mother-in-law since that incident and only keep contact for her to see our daughter. His ex-girlfriend is still bitter about him breaking up with her, and she sometimes does things like follow me to the grocery store or follow my husband and I to our date nights. This Thanksgiving, we had a dinner planned for close family and made the mistake of inviting mother-in-law. She brought his ex, and I tried to be polite and set up an extra spot on the table because I didn't want to be rude. Everything went well until my daughter woke up from her nap before dinner, and his ex raced to pick her up. I was behind her, and as she picked her up, she began saying things like, "Mama's here, baby. Don't worry, Mama's here for you." And I felt very uncomfortable. I then attempted to take my daughter, and she wouldn't let go, and said I should let her have a few seconds in the life I had stolen from her. Let me tell you now, I was seeing red. I told her that what she said was out of line, and she needed to leave and not come back. I was done with her ruining things she wasn't invited to just because my mother-in-law asked her to come. I 100% do not feel like an a-hole, although my mother-in-law chewed me out afterwards and left. She's also gotten some of my husband's aunts and cousins on her side, so I'm starting to feel bad. Cut your mother-in-law out. Stop being polite when she turns up. Seriously, I'd speak to the police about a restraining order. Your husband needs to be very clear with his mother that if she ever pulls a stunt like that again, she'll never see her granddaughter. Wow, not the a-hole. From a very young age, my sister had these grand birthday parties. My parents spent a month or 2 saving up and planning these parties. The same could not be said for my birthdays. Sometimes got a cake, but I always felt a little bitter. I am my mother's B. I get that. I wasn't entitled to the same level of attention or celebration. But as a little kid, it hurt, and I didn't understand. It didn't take long for my sister to notice the differences between us. She made fun of me, took my stuff, and demanded I drive her everywhere. If I refused, I was grounded. There wasn't much love between us. I was just there to look after her. Even after I moved out, this didn't change much. She'd call me asking for cash or a ride. If I didn't respond in a timely manner or say I couldn't give her what she wanted, my parents blew up my phone. There was an incident last year. It involved her wanting a ride, me not leaving work early, her missing a hangout, colorful texts, and my father calling my office over and over again. I stopped talking to her after that. To be honest, I think I was looking for a reason to cut her off. My father refuses to speak to me until I speak to her. She's exhausting, and he's not much better. I don't really miss them. To make up for the lack of birthday celebrations, I've celebrated my past few birthdays in style. I dress up, go to a fancy restaurant or a big city for a day trip. For obvious reasons, I won't be doing anything this year. But in 3 years, I want to take a trip to New York City. I'm already saving up for it. I'm actually looking forward to turning 30 now. I'm really excited about this trip. Unfortunately, I made the mistake of mentioning it to my mother. At first, she said I should bring my sister as a safety measure. She claimed it was dangerous for me to go alone. I've traveled alone plenty of times before, and she's never been concerned. Then, she said it was selfish. She claimed it was selfish for me to save all that money for a birthday trip. I'm only putting $25 to the side every paycheck. I'm not breaking the bank. Next, she claimed it was immature for an adult to put that much effort into a birthday celebration. Then, she said it wasn't fair to my sister and that I should make up for not speaking to her by taking her with me. It always comes back to my sister. If I bring her, she'll take it over. It will be all about her and where she wants to go. I really don't want to spend another birthday like that. I'd rather not go at all if she forces her way in. It's been a few days and my mother still won't let it go. Should I just cancel the trip? I'm tempted to lie and say I canceled the trip, but then I would feel too guilty to enjoy myself during the actual trip. Maybe I am too old for birthday trips. Should I just let her go to make everyone happy? I think I'm lost in the crazy. I could really use some guidance. No, you shouldn't. Cut them all out of your life and don't look back. Being a bee doesn't mean you deserve to be treated as less than or used like a servant. This isn't the 13th century last time I checked. Save up and do it up big by yourself or with people who actually value and love you. My mother-in-law has never liked me, and it only seemed to get worse when I married her son. And now we have kids. No matter the fact my husband's ex cheated on him, mother-in-law looks past it and acts like they are made for each other and expects them to get back together. It's been 15 years since they were married, and surely they would have moved on. But not according to mother-in-law. She is still extremely close with my husband's ex and makes comments constantly about them getting back together. I haven't spoken to mother-in-law since the summer where she made a comment about our kids being raised by hubby's ex and how much an amazing mom she would be. Thankfully, the kids don't know her, even though mother-in-law insists on them meeting an old friend of their dad's. Which my husband has told her won't happen because he isn't friends and he doesn't want her around the kids. Mother-in-law, though, went around my husband and asked me directly if his ex could come over for Christmas at our house, telling me his ex wasn't going home for Christmas, and mother-in-law doesn't want her to be alone on Christmas. When I told her no, mother-in-law literally cried and then went on about me being ungrateful and how if it wasn't for me, they would still be together. I don't know how that would work out since the ex ruined their marriage and me and hubby met 3 years later. If it wasn't for you, they would still be married. Huh? Here I thought it was because she was ducking other men while married to your son. Amazing how you're trying to rewrite history into making your son into the unfaithful a-hole instead of his ex-wife. My father and his 2 brothers share ownership of a house they inherited. The house is old, but it has a beautiful backyard with a pool. No one actually lives there now, but it's close to our hometown and we hang out there quite a lot as a family, and my father and his 2 brothers contribute to it equally, both financially and with maintenance type things. Now, in March 2020, one of my cousins, now 34 female, got engaged and decided she wanted to get married fast and have her wedding that summer, if the lockdown had been lifted by then. It became clear right off the bat her plan was to have the reception at the family house. She brought it up on a family video chat, and my father, who is a doctor in our small town, said he was totally opposed to it, mostly because of the optics of hosting a massive wedding on his property, but also because he himself didn't want to endorse it. He proposed she postpone it, but she didn't want to. Her father and my other uncle decided that since it was my father's house too, he had to approve of it, and since he didn't, she had to go with a different venue. Her wedding happened last summer. My father chose not to go, and refused to see any of us who had gone for 2 weeks. He lives alone. My cousin was very resentful of my father at first, and even stopped speaking to him for a bit. Flash forward to earlier this year. I, 28 female, got engaged. We are planning to get married in spring 2022, and we would like to do it at the family house. We really like it. It allows for a cheaper wedding, not having to pay for a venue, and it holds some meaning for us as a couple as well. I talked to my father about it, and he was completely on board with the idea, but said I needed to talk to my uncles as well. So, this last weekend, we were all hanging out at the pool, and I brought up the topic, saying I intended to get married at the house. My cousin immediately jumped out at me, saying I was stealing her idea and that it wasn't fair that I could get married at the house when my father didn't let her get married there. My father intervened, saying the circumstances were different, but that ultimately he understood if his brothers were against it. My cousin's father said he did agree it wasn't too nice of me, but that he wouldn't stand in my way. My other uncle was okay with it. My cousin and her mother, however, are really angry with me. And my cousin has even said I shouldn't bother inviting her to the wedding because she won't come anyway. I will say that I did think the circumstances were different and therefore didn't even consider that I wasn't being considerate of her, and I also really want to get married at the house. But I love my cousin, and seeing her reaction really made me second-guess everything. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. He didn't say she couldn't use the property. He just said she couldn't use it while large gatherings were banned, or discouraged depending on where you live. If she would have postponed her wedding until after the pandemic, she could have used the property. That's a decision she made.